So the last couple of days have been a little bit crazy, and I'm a little bit nerdy and maybe have a different point of view, at least a point of view that I haven't seen on social media quite yet. Our brain as humans operates in a really kind of strange way. I'm gonna get really nerdy on you. Stick with me. We have this part of our brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is in charge of responses like emotions like fear and anger and love and sexual desire. That part of our brain takes a lot of energy. That's why when you have like a big emotional type of event, you'll often say like, man, I just feel totally emotionally drained. Then we have another part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is in charge of being rational and focus. That part of the brain also uses a ton of energy. When these two parts of the brain want to act at the same time, the brain will not allow it. Your brain will start to overheat. It's actually really dangerous thing. That's why when we have a baby that has a fever or something like that, we'll put them in an ice cold bath to keep their brain from overheating, because it can be deadly if that happens. So when there is a huge emotional response like anger or fear or love or that type of thing, our brain will actually shut off the prefrontal cortex part of our brain. Will not allow it to function in the same way. Well, here's what's happened in my mind during this election. Donald Trump and a lot of things that he said had a tendency to go towards some of the fear and anger in other people. So it's when he said things like, hey, you know that job that you had that went overseas or went to another country? You know how mad you are about that? Well, I'm going to do something about it. In playing towards that fear and that anger, people could not rationally think about the things that he was saying. That part of their brain shut off. Fact checkers and stuff were saying like well over half of what he says has falsehood. When he's playing to the fear and anger of his constituents, that rational part of the mind could not see the falsehood that he said. Hillary supporters would get angry at seeing the things that they're like, this just isn't true. They got angry about it and then couldn't rationally think about a lot of the things that the Trump supporters were saying about Hillary. So you had this back and forth where, because of an emotional response, a huge emotional response in this election, people couldn't think rationally. It's not that they didn't want to think rationally, is that it's just impossible to. Now what we're seeing on the other side is a lot of fear and anger towards Trump getting elected. And so now you see these protests, right? So for my friends and family who are Trump supporters, imagine how you would feel if on December 19th, the Electoral College met and decided, you know what, we're going to go with the majority of the citizens of the United States and vote with the majority, which constitutionally they're allowed to do. Just me saying that causes some of you like a little bit of anger to rise up in you, right? Just a little bit of that like, oh man, I would be so mad. And you would start acting in an irrational way if something like that happened. Well, these people that are protesting, they feel like the election was stolen from them. We're all humans. We're all reacting to this in our own way. But feeding into the emotion, feeding into the fear, feeding into the anger, it's not going to help us think rationally and do what's best for America. So if you've made it this far in the video, without getting pissed off at me, here's my challenge to you. I hope that as Americans, we can stop with the anger and we can stop with the fear and we can start to let our mind work rationally to solve problems. If our president fails, we're going to fail. Don't let that happen. Don't let fear and anger get the best of us as Americans. We can do better than that.